Hi everybody, we're going to review some word problems on multiplying and dividing fractions by a whole number and a whole number by a fraction. So let's dive in and let's do a couple review questions. Here's the first one. Miss Garcia buys 2 pounds of ground meat for burgers. She plans to use 1/5 of a pound of meat for each burger. How many burgers will Miss Garcia be able to make? All right, so let's look at our question. How many burgers will she be able to make? So we're going to be figuring out how many burgers. So what do we know about those burgers? Well, she bought 2 pounds of ground meat. So this 2 pounds, that's my total. That's what she bought. She's planning to use 1/5 of a pound of meat for each burger. So for one burger, we're going to use 1/5 a pound. So here's what I'm thinking. Whoops, sorry. Here's where we're starting. We have 2 pounds. Here are my 2 pounds of meat. Now each one of these I'm going to split up and make 1/5 pound, a 1/5 of a pound to make a burger. So in this pound here, if I look at just 1 pound, I need to split this up into fifths. So my denominator is a 5, so I need to split it up into 5 pieces. Now this one, I also have to, it's another pound, so I'm going to split it up into 5 pieces. So now it's asking me how many burgers will Miss Garcia be able to make? Well, each one of these fifths makes a burger. So this one makes a burger, and this one, and this one, and this one, and this one. So for every pound of hamburger, I make 5 burgers. So then here I can also then another 5 burgers to make a total of 10 burgers. Now that was one way by drawing a picture, because you know I love to draw pictures, but another way is to do an algorithm. So we could think, okay, we're starting with 2 pounds. I'm starting with my 2, and now I'm splitting it up equally. So when I split things up equally, that means I am dividing, because I'm making equal groups, because each one of these is making an equal group, and each one is an equal group of 1/5. So really what I'm doing is I have 2 divided by 1/5. So to do 2 divided by 1/5, let's just remember, when I'm dividing by a fraction, one thing I can do is keep, change, flip. I'm going to keep my 2, but my 2 needs to become a fraction. So to make my 2 a fraction, I'm going to make it 2 over 1 whole. And now I'm going to change my division to a multiplication, and then I'm going to flip my fraction here. So which is going to flip to become 5 over 1. Now anytime I have my multiplication, I get to multiply across. So 2 times 5 equals 10, and 1 times 1 equals 1. So I get 10 over 1, which is exactly the same thing as 10 wholes, which is what we did over here. So how many burgers will Garcia be able to make? She will be able to make 10 burgers. And remember, I start with a whole number, I end with a whole number. So when I'm doing my division, if I start with a whole number, I'm going to end with a whole number, because it doesn't really make any sense to say I have 1/5 of a burger each person will be able to make. It doesn't make much sense. All right, let's try the second problem. Mr. Ramirez served 1/2 gallon of milk to his family. He poured equal amounts of milk into 10 different glasses. What fractional part of the gallon of milk did each family member receive? Okay, I'm going to go back to my question. What fractional part, kind of gave me a clue, of the gallon of milk did each family member receive? So let's go back to what we know. We know Mr. Ramirez served 1/2 gallon of milk. Wait a minute, that's what he served. That's my total. That's all he served. He served all of that. He poured an equal, helper word, amounts of milk into 10 different glasses. All right, so let's go with my drawing. You know I love to draw. So Let's start with my half gallon of milk. All right, pretend that's a half. So here's my half gallon of milk and I'm pouring it out, right? How many am I gonna do? 10 glasses. So I'm taking this and I'm pouring it out into 10 different glasses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? So it's going to be getting smaller because look, I'm sharing this part here with everybody here. So I gotta think to myself, okay, if I have a half, I'm starting with a half, and I need to share that with 10 different people. So I'm sharing this with 10 people. So if I need to split this up, I'm gonna split it into 10 pieces. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. Now, each person, that's talking about one. For one person, they get this one here. But wait a minute, what do we know about fractions? We have to have equal parts. So if I cut this part up, I also have to, you're right, cut up this part. So I'm gonna also cut this part up. So each person, I'm gonna get one out of what is the fractional part of the original gallon. So this is the whole gallon. I got one out of how many pieces? 5, 10, 15, 20. So I get 1/20. So each person gets 1/20th of the gallon of milk. So this is the way to draw it. Now you know we always can solve with our algorithm. Let's go back. What did we start with? We started with a total. So my total was 1/2. I'm splitting it equally among 10 different people. So I'm splitting it or sharing, meaning I'm going to divide, and I'm dividing it between 10 people. And remember, when we're dividing by fractions, we can keep, change, flip. I'm going to keep my 1/2, change my division to a multiplication, and I'm going to flip. But, ooh, wait a minute. To make a whole number, remember, we put it over 1. So now I'm going to flip it and get 1/10. And then when we multiply, we get a multiply across. So we have 1 times 1. And we have 2 times 10 equals 20. So I get 1, whoopsies, 20th. Also the same thing. So what fractional part of the milk did each family get? They received 1/20th. All right, let's look at one last one. Doing great. Okay, now let's look at this problem. Genesis worked on her science project for 5 nights. She worked 2/3 hour each night. How many hours did Genesis work on her project during the 5 nights? Okay, so let's look at our question. How many hours did Genesis work on her project during the 5 nights? So my question is asking me for how many hours. So let's go back and look to see what we know about hours. We know she worked 2/3 an hour each night. There's that each again to help me out. So it means every single night. And how many nights did she do it? Okay, she worked for 5 nights. So you know I like to draw, so I'm going to go ahead and start drawing this one. So let's draw my 5 nights. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now pretend those are equal. So 5 nights. And we know she said she worked 2/3 an hour each night. So on this night, she worked for 2/3. The next night, 2/3. The next night, 2/3. And the next, and the next. So we see 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 2/3, 2/3. And you're right, and I kind of snuck that in on accident. What's happening? Each night we're doing 2/3 and another 2/3 and another 2/3 and another 2/3, right? So each time we have to figure out all of those hours. So I'm doing 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3. I'm trying to find that total. I don't know the total. So now what we could do is, because we know 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3, I hear plus, plus, repeated, repeated, repeated. We know repeated addition is, you're right, multiplication. So I do have here, I have 5 groups of 2/3, which is the same thing as saying I have 5 times 2/3. So I'm looking at this. So now in the last problems, we had to do our keep, change, flip when we had division, because we wanted to make it into multiplication, because we knew when we got to that multiplication, it's super easy. We just multiply the numerators by the numerator and denominator by the denominator. So here, there is no keep, change, flip. None of that is worried about in multiplication. You have it right where you want. The only thing I have to worry about is making this whole number now into a fraction. And to do that, we do 5 over 1. You got it, just like before. So 5 times 2/3. 5 times 2 equals 10. So that's my numerator. My denominator, we're going to come across and do 1 times 3. 1 times 3 is 3. So my answer is 10/3 hours. But wait a minute, 10/3 hour. This right here is an improper fraction. So we're going to want to make it into a mixed number. Whoops, there you go. We're going to want to make it into a mixed number so we can see how many hours is that? 10/3? I don't quite know. So we know, remember, a fraction is the same thing as, look at this, our division sign, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take 10 and we can divide it by 3. So 10 divided by 3. So I'm going to think to myself, how many times is 3 going to 10? So I can count by 3s. 3, 6, 9, 12. Ooh, too much. Can't use that one. So my answer, I have 3. 3 times 3 is 9. And subtract. And I get 1. And now, yes, this is my remainder. But remember, in 5th grade, we get to kick it up a notch. And we're not going to say remainder. We're going to make this into a fraction. So this 1 becomes my numerator. And my denominator is my divisor, what I'm dividing by. So 1/3. So now, how many hours did I work during the 5 nights? I worked for 3 1/3 hours. So either one of these are my answers, but this one right here is going to probably be on there to know how many total hours there was. Now, another way to do it is I could go back and look at this picture. Can't I draw 2/3? So I could say, look, 2/3. My 3 is my denominator. That's how many total parts. 2 is my numerator. How many parts are shaded? I'm going to do it again. Because I could do 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Because we know when we're adding fractions, if we have the same denominator, we just add the numerators. So let's think. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And they're all cut into thirds, so my denominator stays the same. Oh, look at that. Exactly the same. And we could also see how this works into a mixed number. I'm going to take this third here, and I'm going to regroup it into make a whole. And I could take this third, and I'm going to add that to this one. I make another whole. This one went here, this guy went here, I made a whole. Now I'm going to look at this one. This guy here, I'm going to add him. I'm at 3 holes, and I still have this 1/3. So these right here made the 3. So I also can see I have 3 holes and 1/3. Exactly the same way. So whichever way you decide to do, if you want to draw a picture, you do your addition or you multiplication, any way you work it out, you're still going to have the same answer. So do whatever works for you. So I hope that helped you out in looking at these type of word problems for your assignment. And I hope everything's going great. Miss you guys.